Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to Phoenix Business RadioX. I'm your host, Karen Nowicki, and I'd like to welcome you to AZ TechCast, sponsored by Arizona Technology Council. The AZ TechCast is dedicated to covering innovation and technology in Arizona and beyond. Broadcasted monthly, AZ TechCast invites leading experts to have real conversations about what's happening in the tech sector across the state of Arizona. From regional news to innovative startups, companies, and emerging technologies, AZ TechCast covers the critical issues and economic trends propelling the state's growing tech ecosystem. I'd like to thank Arizona Commerce Authority, AZ TechCast 2020 innovation sponsor. The Arizona Commerce Authority is the state's leading economic development organization with a streamlined mission to grow and strengthen Arizona's economy. The Commerce Authority uses a three-pronged approach to advance the economy: recruit, grow, and create. And I'd also like to thank our 2020 Tech Advocate sponsor, JDH Insights. A leader in coaching and executive development, JDH Insights is committed to helping organizations cultivate and leverage their most important and complex asset, their humans. Visit jdhinsights.com to enhance leadership and improve team dynamics to take your business to the next level. And with that, let's give a warm welcome to today's distinguished panel. We have Rebecca Clyde, co-founder and CEO of Botco.ai and principal of Scottsdale digital agency Ideas Collide. Rebecca, I hope I pronounced the company correctly. Did I?
You did. Thank you.
Okay, I should have asked that. Happy to have you. I should have asked that ahead of time. And Elliot Manson, Director of Analytics and Marketing for KEO Marketing. Welcome, Elliot.
Thank you.
Thrilled to have you. And Molly, I'm going to take a stab. I know Steve mentioned your last name a couple of times. Castellazzo?
Yes.
Okay, good. Molly's with us.
Excellent.
She is the CEO and Chief Content Strategist at, I have to say it again now, right? Castellazzo Content. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you.
And with us as well, co-hosting with me today is Steve Zelstra, President and CEO of Arizona Technology Council. Hello, sir.
Hello. It's great to be here.
You and I are both excited about this segment today. It's, as you pointed out before we came on live, that this is a little different for us, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, we have three people that are experts in their field on, very specific aspects of marketing. And while I've done business development marketing in the past, these guys are true experts.
I wholeheartedly agree. And Business RadioX, what we do is kind of marketing, kind of PR, also business development. So I'm looking forward to learning as well, because my niche is really people, but not necessarily the marketing aspect. And I think we've got a lot of ground to cover as it relates to digital marketing and the way things are these days, not only with COVID, but of course, just the way in which we're becoming more and more, face forward as it relates to digital marketing. So let's tee this up. As we spend more time on our mobile phones, tablets, and laptops, a transformation of marketing continues at a breakneck pace right before our very eyes. Modern-day marketing departments not only need to keep up with industry trends, but also must combine a creative side of the discipline with a technical side of data, digital engineering, and analytics. During today's TechCast, these distinguished experts will share their expertise to help marketers make informed decisions against the backdrop of the exciting and disruptive trends in marketing technology, and discuss how chief marketing officers and chief information officers must work in unison to be effective in the digital age. As I mentioned a moment ago, we've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get started. I would love for each of you, please, to just start off by, again, sharing your name, the company that you represent, the title that you hold, and really just a brief description about what it is that you do and how you serve your clients. Elliot, would you be okay starting for us first?
Yeah, certainly. So Elliot Manson, Director of Analytics and Advertising at KEO Marketing. I've been in marketing for 10 years now, so I got lucky and started in marketing, right when Google Ads first started. So I was kind of on the forefront of the digital side of the business, and I have almost no knowledge of pre-digital advertising. So this is all I know at this point. So it's hard for me to be able to put in a perspective of what it used to be like versus what it is now, because that's all I know. But I focus heavily on paid media and the analytics side of the business. And then, in my free time, I focus a lot on like empathy and empathy training. So I try to bring a lot of empathy into the way that I think about marketing. because I think it's a huge component of marketing, especially the future of marketing. So there's a lot of ties of just how the human thinks that play into marketing role today.
Could you expand on that? Empathy. That's, to me, I mean, I know the word, right? I use it frequently, but as it relates to marketing, can you position that for us a little bit deeper than what you just shared?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you want to be in the top 95 percentile of a marketer, you just have to be able to think how your customer thinks. As long as you can think like they think and put yourself in their shoes and understand their problems without ever actually being involved with their problems, you've already solved most of your marketing challenges. So you're really taking a step in front of the game if you can just be somebody who is empathetic and can think like your customers before they even know what you're thinking about.
Thank you. Yeah. Molly, how about you? Please introduce yourself. Tell us about your company and the clients that you serve.
Sure. Yeah. And Karen, you did a great job pronouncing the name. It's not easy. I myself had to learn, especially how to write the name in cursive when I first took it on. Anyway, I'm the founder, CEO, chief content strategist at Casalazzo Content. We are a demand generation and sales acceleration firm. So we help our clients, primarily technology companies, tell their stories and engage their buyers from the very beginning of what we think of as the marketing funnel all the way through the sales pipeline, even past the point where they become customers, to really evangelize them. And I love what you said, Karen, about, people, and Elliot, what you talked about empathy, because our philosophy at Casalazzo Content is that, as marketers, we're talking to people, right? And buyers, even in the technology space, even, buyers for big companies, they're people. And so the best way to be an effective marketer is to be human and to remember that we're talking to people, we are engaging people, and we do that in all the ways that we would do it in a face-to-face conversation. We have to leverage technology in order to do that online and at scale. But ultimately, what it really comes down to is engaging with other human beings.
So well put. It's not unlike what I said before we came online. I always tell everybody, it's like we're having a conversation over coffee or a shared meal. We want people to really just settle into these conversations, because it's when we get to know each other deeply, to the degree we can in an hour, some of that deeper wisdom and those thought-provoking questions, and sometimes even the collaborative opportunities are rich for the picking for us. Thank you so much, Molly and Elliot. Rebecca, how about introducing yourself as well?
Sure. It's great to be here with everybody today. Thank you, Karen, for organizing this. My name is Rebecca Clyde, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Botco.ai. And we are helping businesses double their conversion rates using intelligent chat. And so just like we were talking about conversation, we are literally in the conversation business at Botco.ai. We facilitate conversations between healthcare companies and consumers of healthcare primarily, in helping them answer all the questions that they might have about a service or about a location of a service provider. And then not only do we help them answer the questions and drive them through the right workflows, but we also provide insights to the providers about exactly what their customers are asking for, so that they can make better decisions and deliver a better consumer journey.
Stephen, you're right. We have the right folks here today, don't we? For sure. Let's talk a little bit, and we might have to leave Elliot out of this conversation. No, just kidding. How has the explosion of digital technology changed traditional marketing? And I'm joking about that, of course, because I'm sure you're aware, as you've worked with clients, they may come and say, hey, this is what we've always done. And you're like, okay, well, let me help you sway in this direction. So the question again for each of you, and I'd love for us to just kind of, just piggyback off of each other. How has the explosion of digital technology challenged traditional marketing? Who would like to share first?
I think the biggest challenge that we have is just between the five of us and our audience, of course. I think the challenge is this potential problem of the shiny new object, right? Where I think oftentimes there's, a new technology tool that seems really exciting and enticing and promising. And I think oftentimes marketers kind of forget that it's really about the fundamentals and setting a really strong foundation. And that's always been the case, whether the technology that we're talking about, Elliot mentioned Google Ads way back in the day, or whether it's something, more modern like an AI chatbot. Really what we have to do first is make sure that we've got a foundation of understanding who our audience is and the messages that we need to share with them that are really going to be engaging, and the challenges that they're having, because that's our job, to solve the challenges that our audience is having and help educate them in that process. And then, only then, think about how can we leverage technology tools, of which there are new ones every day. How can we leverage technology tools in order to do that fundamental job better?
And I kind of look at it from, a different point of view, in the sense that I feel like up until now, and almost historically in the marketing profession, I've been a marketer my entire career for over 20 years, is we tend to focus on what does the brand or what does the business want to message to the consumer. And it's usually that idea of like, we need to tell you, Mr. Consumer or Mrs. Consumer, A, B, or C. And I think what's happening now is the opposite direction, right? And the reason my company even exists, because we're working on the other side of that equation, which is understanding what is the consumer telling us that we need to understand as businesses, as brands, so that we can do a better job servicing their needs. So I feel like that kind of patriarchal order of, the big corporate giant dictating to consumers what they need to know is shifting. And now we're starting to, to use Elliot's terms, empathize more and say, hey, you know what, maybe we should actually listen to our customers and see what they are asking for and respond to them instead of the other way around. And so I'm really seeing a huge shift in understanding, and it requires a different mindset to be able to work in marketing with the consumer point of view, really driving the conversation instead of the brand point of view.
Rebecca, do you, on that sense, do you always or kind of approach it in the sense of do market research, or use whatever social media listening tools are out there to better understand what consumers want? Or do you look at it more of like, okay, let's develop 5 brand messages and see which one gets the most engagement, and then we kind of know what our consumer wants?
No, it's actually the opposite. It's let's actually let the consumer ask for what they want. So if you think about digital marketing and how it emerged, right? We told people, if you just go back to pre-digital age, before websites were born, how did you do business with a company? You would actually physically go and talk to people. Then we used phones to do that. And then we migrated to websites where we said, you know what, we want this to be self-serve. Just go to the website, point and click, research what you need, read whatever you need to make a decision, and then buy our product. So we put the onus on the consumer to do their own research and figure things out. But during that whole process, we forgot to actually ask them what they wanted and to let them be part of that journey. And so what I'm seeing is that when we introduce chat into a customer experience or any kind of forum where the consumer gets to ask a question or gets to say exactly what it is that they're looking for, they love that. They want to be heard so badly because they feel like they've been silenced all of these years, that they would rather just go to a website and say, hey, what are the specs, or what is the price, or what are the terms for this type of thing? And just to get the answer that they want. And when I say listening, I'm saying as a brand, being able to extract all those questions, extract all of those insights from social listening tools, from chat, from all of these other places where customers talk to us, and really gaining an understanding of what that consumer point of view is, and then delivering a response instead of always having it be so driven from the top down.
And hasn't that also led to entirely new disciplines? Like, when I was coming up, you never heard about someone working in customer success, right? And that's such a critical aspect now, an important discipline. So it's transformed multiple activities and disciplines, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, the consumer, we talk a lot in healthcare about the consumer-centric journey. and, inverting the healthcare experience from being like, okay, the hospital, the doctor tells you what you need to do and you just do that, right? That was kind of the old way of doing things. And you could replicate that same philosophy across pretty much any industry. So now flipping that and saying, no, the consumer should be dictating how they want to consume the services and the products. And we need to wrap ourselves around what their needs are. And so it's kind of shifting the power dynamic, but in a way, like what you're saying, these customer success roles that are coming up are empowering to both sides, because the brands can do better. They can sell more if that's their approach versus a dictatorial approach.
What I think is really interesting is, now we have these technology tools to understand the questions, and I'm thinking about it more from a B2B perspective. So it's slightly different than, Rebecca, what you were talking about, from a more like a healthcare consumer perspective. But concept is the same, that now we have the tools that we can assess where a business buyer is at in their journey, and what kinds of questions based on who they are and where they're at in their journey, what kinds of questions are they asking? And we can serve up content that addresses those questions. So whereas it used to be you would go to a website and explore, kind of have to navigate yourself and, not really be sure how to find what you were looking for. And then you found something that kind of answered your question, but not really. Now with marketing automation tools, we can actually understand where a buyer is at, and then serve up content that very specifically answers their questions. And then based on that, continue to deliver content that answers the questions they're asking at the stage that they are at. And that's, we've talked a lot about the fact that, research shows that business buyers go 60% of the way through the buyer's journey before they actually have a conversation with a salesperson. So for that, majority of the buyer's journey, it's the content that is the salesperson. It's what they can find online. And the better we can mimic a conversation in that experience by being responsive to what they're looking for, the more successful we're going to be as marketers. And what I've found since COVID, technology companies, our clients, used to do a very significant portion of their marketing activities and sales, prospecting activities through events. And so now that we're not having these huge events, that has taken away these, significant opportunities to have actual real life conversations with actual real life people. And so now content has become even more important, and the technology tools that enable us to deliver it in a way that, again, sort of mimics more like a conversational type experience.
I want to frame some of your quotes there, Molly. I'll attribute them to you.
Good thing we're recording, ladies and gentlemen. We are recording. Woohoo! I love it. So let's talk a little bit further. Ellie, did you have something to add? I'm sorry.
No, please go.
Let's talk a little bit more about how technology has influenced marketing and what that means for marketers, right? So the example that you can survey, that you have to mimic that customer experience, you have to meet them where they're at in the kind of the buying process or the seeking out process. What other ways are we finding that technology is benefiting and helping us when it comes to marketing?
Yeah, I mean, so I think technology is eliminating 90% of marketing jobs, because technology. So most of marketing, outside of what Molly's talking about and what Rebecca's talking about, which are very conversational. So marketing is in two worlds going forward in the next 5 or 10 years. It's those who can have amazing conversations with consumers and those who know data. If you are not good at either one of those, you do not have a job in marketing anymore, because most of marketing is now automated. Because Google ads, Facebook ads, all these ad platforms, they're built so a business owner who owns a donut shop can go on and turn Facebook ads and it be successful. It's not built for somebody like me who can go on and do all these different things that the donut shop owner can do or can't do, because their ultimate business is to automate advertising. And so all the actual ad management, I think all that will be automated pretty soon. Most of email management is automated. A lot of CRMs are fully automating everything now. So it's marketing is just separating what people can do and can't do within the marketing world. And I think people need to start choosing their path of kind of how they want to continue their marketing career or where they want to go with this transition that technology is shifting the marketing landscape.
I think from my point of view, one of the things that I'm seeing is that, there's tons of software products out there. Mine is one of the many in marketing technology. I think there's like 1,000 or something different technology products in marketing. But the secret sauce is really around how do you connect all that data in a way that is meaningful to the business. And so that is the biggest challenge, I think, from a marketer's point of view. And that the really successful, the people who are looking ahead at their careers and how am I going to make my impact, I guess, as a professional, I think it's those people who can successfully connect the dots, create a stack where these systems are talking to each other nicely, are benefiting from each other, and can create a picture that allows the business to make better decisions, to optimize their spending from an ROI perspective, and to ultimately, again, not forgetting the people, the humans at the end of this, ultimately delivering a better donut, if that's what we're selling, or a better healthcare experience, or a better, in the case of technology companies, software product to their users, right? Because that's ultimately the goal of all businesses. And so understanding how all of those interconnected pieces work together and making sure that we're personalizing those journeys and we're extracting the data in a way that we can now create meaningful insights and make better decisions. That will be key as far as like future skill sets.
There's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence and its impact on marketing. Mark Cuban was in town a year ago or so, and he basically said that every business owner is going to have to understand how to utilize artificial intelligence in their enterprise. And the definition of artificial intelligence is really just using computer systems to do tasks that normally require human intelligence, right? That's really what AI is replacing. So in many ways, to your point, Elliot, it's replacing all those grueling tasks that used to be a part of the marketing world and automating them. And obviously that eliminates some of the jobs in this discipline. How do you all feel about that?
So this is something that one of my customers just relayed to me about 2 weeks ago. And so this is a large urgent care brand. They have over 200 locations of urgent care centers in the United States. And their franchise sales team started using our product because they were getting so inundated with questions. They needed a chat solution that would automatically answer the questions. And then their sales organization could focus on selling, not just handling, run-of-the-mill questions. So that was an example, Steve, where they took the 80% boring part of the job, gave it to my software, and then the humans got to do the high quality value work. And within a month of using our product, this person that started using our software, he actually got promoted because his sales went way up. And he was able to now be way more productive because our software was doing the like low level work. And in the past, what had happened is he was getting sucked into all of those like little questions and not able to do the meaningful work. And so that was like the first use case that wasn't like a typical ROI kind of a result, but it was an amazing result from that person's career point of view because he saw our product as really enabling him to succeed in his career.
That's very cool. Molly, you were going to add something.
Yeah, very much along the same lines, Rebecca, that we actually just did an an ebook for a client that has an AI-powered contracting solution for enterprises. So in the course of putting this ebook together, I found some research by Tom Davenport, who wrote Competing on Analytics and many other books since then. He's kind of the analytics guru. And he actually, he did a survey of companies that have implemented machine learning and AI or AI-like tools in their organizations. And the researchers found that in 87% of the cases, the introduction of AI tools did not lead to job losses for the reasons that, Rebecca's anecdote just kind of alluded to. That in the ideal world, and we're seeing that this plays out in the real world as well, the introduction of AI enables humans to do more interesting, more value-added work, and let the technology, do what technology is good at doing, and so humans can, kind of work at that higher level. Now, certainly, the very process-oriented tasks that can be easily automated, like if that's all your job is, you're going to have to figure out how to get to that higher level and do that higher order kind of critical thinking work that AI can't do. But I think we should see it as a tremendous opportunity for marketers and others. And I think this is the case, in many industries and many types of jobs, not just marketing as well.
Do you see folks who used to be in sort of the data entry area in marketing moving to data analytics? Is that sort of the path, Elliot?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for marketing to survive these days without a director of IT or somebody who can write SQL or run a Snowflake database. It is very, very challenging. It will be even more challenging in the future to run without an IT team to be an incredibly effective marketing organization.
I think they were saying that now marketing owns a bigger percentage of the IT budget than anyone.
Probably.
So I've heard there's a new role, the CMTO, Chief Marketing Technology Officer, have a whole job just for themselves.
So that's a great comment to kind of lead into the next question that I have in mind, and that is, so for what is the biggest challenge? And you've given us some examples for marketers of the future. Like, folks have got to stay on top of their game. What would maybe be your advice, or what do you think are some of the challenges that marketers are up against as they look towards the future?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be bridging. It's going to be bridging what kind of those two areas that Elliot talked about, right? Where there are the folks who can, create databases and run queries and do the technical work of analytics, and then folks who can still do the creative type stuff. But then we have to have people, and I think the bulk of the marketing organization will be people who can bridge the two, right? Who can derive insights from the data and then take those insights and execute on them and actually leverage them to do meaningful marketing work.
I see us really in marketing as becoming more scientists in a lot of ways, running a lot of experiments, really looking at data a lot more closely. We used to A/B test, but I think that's not sufficient anymore. I mean, there's more variables that have to be considered in the experimentation process. And I think it's also going to be challenging. Molly alluded to this, is just the shiny new object, right? It's easy to chase after those. And understanding what are the things that are going to meaningfully contribute to the growth of the business are going to be challenges. And all this while trying to maintain some level of ethics and protection of the consumer right. I mean, all of that needs to be considered too. So it's an increasingly sticky situation, I think.
So, Elliot, sort of inferred this in his example of Google advertising. But over the last 10 years, there's really been a transformation in how we market, the technology tools we use, and especially social media. So, we're all on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and so on. How have these mediums transformed the very nature of marketing?
I can speak to that because that's pretty much my entire, it's pretty much my entire job.
Massively is the answer, but yes.
But, it's a great point, and it's understanding that your audience, these platforms give you an opportunity to better understand your audience and how they interact in different places. I think I come from the B2B world, so my judgment is a little bit clouded because I'm not spending time trying to sell socks to somebody. So when it comes to, the B2B side, it's understanding how you can best influence your potential customers and on what platform. But then it's also understanding that, yes, your target audience might be a director of IT, but they might have a TikTok account. Like, that is a real thing. And it's not eliminating platforms because you think that your audience doesn't live there. It's just understanding how to better leverage the audiences. So maybe you want to drive cold audience from LinkedIn because you can target people who are directors of IT, but then maybe you just do a bunch of retargeting on TikTok and Snapchat because they've already been to your website, but it doesn't mean that they don't use Snapchat and they don't use TikTok. It just means that you probably can't find them on those platforms due to their marketing limitations. So just all these platforms give you such an opportunity to, one, reach your perfect customer from a cold audience standpoint, but then stay in front of them in so many more places. You don't just have to stay in front of them on Facebook anymore. You can stay in front of them literally everywhere they go.
And yet it's a different conversation on the platforms, isn't it? So I'm on Facebook, have been for years, just more social, and that keeps growing because of the role that I play here at Business RadioX. And I haven't really taught myself yet or spent as much time on LinkedIn to know how to show up in that space. I need to spend more time figuring out and need to have somebody, with your expertise to help me do that. But what would you say to that as well? Any of you? There really is a different persona or a different vibe for each of the social media platforms as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, right now with, virtual being everything, right? And businesses being, cut off from events or live interaction, at least from our standpoint, I'm sure you guys are seeing the same thing in B2B, just in terms of me selling my product. We're getting a lot more activity on LinkedIn than ever before, and that has been turning into one of our most productive channels, whereas in the past, maybe LinkedIn was just kind of so-so. So I think those changes are happening right now for sure. And, I'm really excited. I know most people are a little bit concerned about all of this talk about breaking up Facebook or
Google.
But from a marketing standpoint, I'm actually quite excited about it because I feel like in a lot of ways we've been held hostage by their price control, their control on prices and what you can do. And I'm really excited to see a new generation of creative ideas coming out, once we can kind of loosen the monopoly that these firms have had on marketing for so many years. I mean, I'm so tired of Facebook advertising, honestly. Really, we can do better things. That there has to be a better idea out there, and I'm really excited to see it.
Well, that's what I don't think a lot of people understand is, I think people in marketing will understand it, but the general consumer doesn't. And I don't know what the exact number is, so I'm throwing one out there, but I know it's high. But it's something like 95 or 98% of like Google's revenue is advertising revenue. They make almost all their money off ads. And so Facebook is probably fairly similar. So it's just understanding that these are just advertising platforms at the end of the day that drive all of their business.
Yeah. And honestly, and we all know that those have become largely pay-for-play platforms. So what used to be, you could produce great content and it would travel. Well, now if you don't boost it with a check, with a credit card, it doesn't go anywhere. It could be a great piece of content, but the algorithms are set up to advance the content that gets paid for. And I think that's what has really, in my view, has really hurt the experience, right? Because it's not authentic like it used. I think at the beginning, those experiences were very authentic, and that's how they got so much traction. And then they were like essentially just over, I don't know, just the greed got beyond. So I'm excited to see what happens, because I know there's so much great content out there that's being created that just doesn't get seen because, maybe the person that created it doesn't have a ton of money to put behind it.
So I have a follow-up question, but I want to make sure Molly had an opportunity to weigh in on the social media issue.
Yeah. And it actually ties into, Rebecca, what you were just talking about. I think that the biggest challenge that marketers face, given the tremendous growth in the number of social platforms and the use of social platforms, is cutting through the noise. And that's partly the noise and the volume, sort of the amount of noise and how loud the noise is really growing exactly because of the reason that Rebecca, alluded to, that because companies, all they need is a check in order to, boost the volume of the messages that they're putting out. It doesn't have to be, it's not organically the most engaging content necessarily that's getting the most play or that has the loudest voice. That means that cutting through the noise is even more difficult. Now it's not just about having really engaging content. It's also not even just about having a big checkbook. And so I see that as our biggest challenge, is figuring out how do we really reach the people that we want to have conversations with, and do that in a way that is scalable, but also meaningful and human. And I think it's interesting that as the ubiquity of these digital platforms has increased and activity on these platforms has increased, we're actually seeing a return to some, old school marketing techniques like direct mail. Yeah. So for our clients, again, it's B2B space. So they have, their total addressable markets is often not, millions of people. So direct mail is just one example of kind of an old school technique. Actually can work really well. It's been made more difficult now that people aren't in the office, they're at home. So figuring out how to mail stuff to people is more difficult now with COVID. But I think that, really taking a step back and thinking about how can we get to the people that we're trying to reach and get to them in a way that we can have what approximates, a real life conversation with them at scale.
So given the election, I've been getting way too much direct mail. So,
haven't we all?
Sure, yeah.
My follow-up question is, another means to communicate with customers is email. And, people use email signatures. I know a company that the Crown Brothers, who started Insight, have invested in that automates the changing of your email signature. And, but I've seen this trend recently where people are going from email to text and promoting products and services and opportunities in text. And one of the interesting things about text versus email is people respond an order of magnitude faster to a text than they do an email. We get bazillions of emails and they sit in our inbox, but people instantly respond to text. How is that changing marketing? And, is what I said true? Is there a trend moving from email to text?
Yeah, they're definitely.
I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
I'll just make one quick comment that I think that this is an example of kind of the challenge that I just described, where for a while, the main means of communicating with people was through direct mail, right? And then email as a technology came onto the scene. And so then we saw, and in the consumer space, it's different, but in the business space, then we saw a real drop off in direct mail for business, huge increase in email. Now people ignore emails that aren't, from people they know. And so, and then we went to social platforms and now we're going to text. And so I think that, I'm not really commenting on that trend per se, other than to say that it's always important for us to think about, again, how do we reach people in a way that is authentic and doesn't feel intrusive to them, in a way that they not only welcome, but actually ask for.
Yeah, I mean, the messaging trend is one that I've been watching closely because we service that industry too from a chat perspective. And, it's an interesting paradigm because there's two types of messaging. In the United States, if you're just looking at the US market, we're very SMS focused. We haven't really embraced WhatsApp or WeChat the way that it's done in other countries. So we're a little bit different. We're kind of, and the reason why that is, just for background, is because our carriers here offer unlimited data pretty much, which is unusual in other places. So that's kind of the big distinction. But if you kind of look at the global consumption of messaging, I mean, we have surpassed, there are more messaging accounts than there are humans on the planet at this point. And so what that means is that messaging is ubiquitous at this point. It's also really critical as a mechanism for reaching people that don't have desktops. With the email is kind of an older technology. And so there's two things. There's a demographic thing with email, which you're always going to hit a little bit of an older audience. And there's also a technology and income and geographic situation. So if your company does a lot of business in India or in China or in Africa, then having an answer to the messaging solution is really key. And then, right now, what we're used to in the United States is a very rudimentary text, like text stop to cancel, text yes to reply, right? Mm-hmm. Super rigid and low level. And what we're evolving into is the ability to actually have conversations over chat and over messaging. And so we already have at Botco.ai customers that are successfully using messaging channels to have entire conversations with customers that never involve a human on the other side, but it's a software, it's our software that's essentially answering the questions and handling that entire engagement. So, WhatsApp right now is exploding in terms of the number of business accounts that are opening up and brands that are now embracing WhatsApp and having the ability to provide a messaging experience. And this is where voice comes in down the road. I'm really excited about it because, again, outside of the US, most people you see them walking around talking into their phones to send messages to each other. We don't do that as much here in the States, but in other countries, it's the main way that people message each other. It's voice. And so that means as marketers, we need to understand that channel, understand how to work with voice, and how to have a brand presence that's audio driven. And it's just super exciting in my point of view. So I've said enough.
But but Rebecca, you're also talking, you're talking on two different spectrums of messaging where I think kind of what you were hitting on, and where I think messaging, and I 100% agree, where I think messaging is so important, is when a consumer has opted into messaging and said, I want you to message me because it's easier. Then you have the other messaging where you're getting cold text messages from somebody who bought your number from somebody. And for me personally, I still feel a little bit like my text message is my privacy. I'm okay giving up my email inbox to get blown up by people. I'm just over that. It is what it is. It's the world we live in. But I still like my cell phone privacy. I'm probably in 5 years that'll be over, and I'll be totally okay with it. But yeah, right now, if I get a cold spam message to my texting or my number, I'll likely never respond to that one. I'll probably more likely respond to an email. You will?
Yeah, I'll say stop.
I just block them.
Yeah.
And I
did you sign up to get your ballot tracked on messaging so you could get little updates on your ballot?
Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah,
that was really cool. So when you send in your ballot, you could text a number and it sends you like a little update on what it is. And so that's kind of the beginning. So that's an opt-in, of course, scenario. But, I'm seeing especially outside of the United States, hospitality brands are now completely on WhatsApp, so that if you, as you're arriving, I need a card, or can I get a reservation to a restaurant, or can you send tickets for me to this show? It's all being done over WhatsApp, and it's all being done through it's automated, and this is AI.
The only time,
Karen, I wanted to follow up on the generational issue. So, just an anecdote. So, the entire time my kids were in high school and college, if I emailed them, they would never respond, right? And they're on TikTok and, Snapchat and all those kinds of things. But what I noticed is when, not my stepson, but my two kids started working, they were on email. You suddenly could communicate with them on email because it's required in their job. So, I don't know how that influences things, but anyway, Karen, you were going to ask another question.
Well, now you've got me going in a different direction as well. But, I was thinking earlier about, so we had a show earlier today with the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation, right? So it's folks my age in their 50s who are helping high school students acquire scholarships if they have a parent or grandparent who served in the Marines. And they're struggling to find enough kids here in Arizona. And so I'm helping them with a podcast and that sort of thing. And they're doing a lot of the right things. But one of the conversations came up when we were talking today on air about the marketing aspect of this and staying in front of people. And this conversation around TikTok, it just dawned on me, 2 hours ago, where are the kids? Where are the high school students, right? It's one thing to get more donors and people to, in businesses to participate in providing the funds for these scholarships. But the kids that you really want to reach, the people you really want to reach are these kids. And where are they? Snapchat, TikTok, and I don't know if you can advertise on Snapchat. I don't think you can, but TikTok, right? That's where they are. They are not hanging out on Facebook with me. Yeah.
And Twitter. Kids use Twitter a lot these days.
I've never wrapped my brain around Twitter. Steve, are you on Twitter?
Oh, yeah.
Sports is big on Twitter.
Yeah.
I use I don't use Instagram so much, but all the other ones.
Yeah, Twitter has been lost on me. It might help me, but I just haven't been able to do that. Molly, what were you going to share?
I think this conversation really points to the necessity of understanding where our audience, whether that means they're, prospective buyers or people we have already communicated with to some extent, or whether they're customers, where are they at? And what are the channels through which they want to engage with us? And I think the answer is certainly different, in terms of generational dynamics. It's certainly different in terms of B2B versus B2C, and it's even different in different industries. I mean, there are, some kinds of industries where people are really active in LinkedIn groups, for example. And so then kind of joining the conversation, not even necessarily advertising, but just meaningfully joining the conversation from a thought leadership perspective can be a really effective way to reach people. We do a lot of thought leadership content development and understanding even beyond the social platforms. Are there online communities where people go for expertise and conversation with their colleagues, where we can join those our clients can join those conversations? So I think it's really about taking a step back and understanding, based on who we're trying to engage, where are they at online, and how best can we engage with them where they are at.
May I ask a question about, so when I was coming up in industry prior to the internet, everything was about your collateral, right? Everybody invested significant amounts of money in physical collateral. Then for a long time, people have had both digital and hard collateral. in general, you guys would see this because you're servicing your audience, your customers. What's happening to collateral? Is it going way down? You suggested a resurgence, Molly, of mail, stuff we receive in the mail. What's going on with collateral?
Well, so from our perspective, the vast majority of what our clients publish is digital, with one strong exception. Two strong exceptions. One, materials, whether that's sales collateral, marketing collateral, or actually, like an ebook. I guess it wouldn't be an ebook, a book, a white paper that's actually in physical form, that our clients, have wanted to have physical materials when they do events.
Trade shows. Yeah.
Trade shows, and then, or conferences, that kind of thing. And then also, I think, my experience is that B2B salespeople still like to have a leave behind, have something in their hands that when they go to meet with the prospect, they can leave them with something physical. Now that people aren't, since COVID, now that people aren't having those kinds of meetings, the vast majority, I mean, really everything that our clients are doing from both true thought leadership and a marketing collateral perspective is digital, which actually opens up some really cool, exciting opportunities to leverage new technology platforms for publication. Because it's not just, it's fine to have this really cool animated interactive ebook, but we need it to be a PDF. People aren't saying that as much anymore because they're not going to meetings if they need something printed. And it could be that even once we are back doing things in person again, that's a trend that kind of remains.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that if you think about it, this is our collateral, right? It's like, if it's not mobile friendly, it doesn't exist. And so video is a great platform for the kind of the new collateral. Audio is blowing up in terms of like podcasts. We're an example of that right now. We're living it. Content is seeing a huge expansion. And I think what used to be the leave behind, now I see it as swag. Like swag is the new collateral, really. When people want something physical, it's like, give me a hat with your logo or a cool, shirt or something, right? So I feel like the leave behind is now moving towards swag, and the content itself is like, produce a really awesome storytelling video or a really great podcast or, something in that can exist in the digital realm that can last for a while and can be referenced easily.
Elliot, anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, really, it's just the same thing Molly said. I mean, we're almost 100% digital at this point, everything that we touch, and with the exception of sales teams, things of that nature, that actually need material.
Yeah. And it really is about the relationship. That's what I keep hearing in everything. It is the relationship and anticipating and navigating. And what you've taught me is asking what the end user needs and wants and then delivering on that. This has been a fascinating conversation. I'm certainly walking away with more questions, but also a lot of knowledge. Stephen, anything else you want to ask or say before we kind of bring it to a close today?
Well, I want to thank our three experts for enlightening us today and sharing their experiences and their expertise. I've learned a lot today as well. And thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been so much fun.
Before we close up and I share a little bit before we go off air, could each of you again share your name, the company, and where we can find you, and of course your company in this digital world? How do we stay in touch with you? Elliot, start.
Sure. I'll go ahead and start. So Elliot Manson, KEO Marketing. We're headquartered in Tempe. You can find me probably easiest as LinkedIn. I've actually deleted all of my social media. So it's odd to be in marketing and not have any social media. But LinkedIn, just Elliot Manson, probably the only one.
Very good. And where in Tempe are you?
Elliot and what's the other street? Elliot and the 101-ish. Basically, yeah. So kind of South Tempe, Southeast Tempe.
Very good. We're the studio is at Mac 6 on the Broadway curve.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Very good. Molly, how about you?
Yeah, so online website is castellazocontent.com, and that's CASTELAZO content. Like Elliot, I actually do very little on social channels from a personal perspective. Of course, from a professional perspective, LinkedIn, Molly Castellazo is the place to find me.
Wonderful. Thanks again for being
here. And
I
will answer email.
Okay.
So feel free to email me.
Good. Rebecca, how about you?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Karen. It's Rebecca Clyde. It's CLYDE, and I can be found on LinkedIn, where I'm very active, and Instagram. My handle is @CEO Rebecca Clyde. So I'd also be happy to take any questions or follow-ups after this.
Wonderful.
And you can reach the Tech Council at aztechcouncil.org. And my handle is @SZylstra.
Awesome. My son and I, my 13-year-old and I, we are tasked with watching Social Dilemma this weekend. So I don't know that I'm going to be saying the same thing that a couple of you said, that I'm out when it comes to social media, but I have a feeling I'm going to have a few takeaways as well. Again, thank you all for being here. You've been listening to AZ TechCast, brought to you by Phoenix Business Radio with Business RadioX. Today's AZ TechCast was brought to you also by Arizona Commerce Authority, the state's leading economic development organization with a streamlined mission to grow and strengthen Arizona's economy. Thank you again so much, Arizona Commerce Authority. And also thank you to JDH Insights, the 2020 Tech Advocate sponsor. Visit JDH Insights to enhance leadership and improve team dynamics to take your business to the next level. If you're interested in being a podcast participant or sponsor for the Council's AZ TechCast, please contact marketing at aztechcouncil.org to lock in your opportunity to further position you as a tech expert, influencer, and innovator like our guest today. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Karen Nowicki. Thanks for listening.